Now, when I say that I was going to ruffle some feathers, I clearly meant it. There are over like 3,000 comments on that last video, so let me clarify some things. I said that this book sent me down a rabbit hole, and I ask if we are actually the fallen angels. Now, the reason I ask that is because in this book, it talks about the fall of the angels and how many angels there are and what their names were and what they did and yada yada yada, this, that, and the other. But one thing that really stood out to me is after I was reading this and it led me down other paths of these other ancient books, like this is actually the first book of Enoch, apparently there's a second one as well, that led me down to these other books, these other ancient texts that are no longer available. And I had to write down some things because in order for me to just keep my thoughts in one coherent message, which they clearly were not in the last one, but it did upset some people. These are just theories. This is what philosophers and researchers do. They theorize. So if you feel like triggered about it, that tells you a lot. And I responded to a comment and I go a little bit deeper when I was on my walk, but I'm just going to talk about really quickly some of the things that are talked about in the book of Enoch that led me down a rabbit hole to go search for other stuff. So Enoch apparently becomes Metatron. And if you know who Metatron is, sorry, I just drank a bunch of water. If you know who Metatron is, then you know that's a really big deal. So long story short, Enoch walks with God, but that God is not the God who created the earth. The God that created the earth is named Yaldabaoth. And Yaldabaoth was created when the God who wanted to create something, Sophia, the goddess of wisdom, which Sophia means wisdom, Sophia wanted to break off from her male counterpart. So she decided to try to make something. When she did that, because it wasn't balanced, she created Yaldabaoth. And Yaldabaoth created the heavens and the earth. So that's why Enoch walks with God. He doesn't walk with Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth is the God that created the earth. And the theory is that Yaldabaoth started to write, and Yaldabaoth started to get people to write these stories about him. And when you look at the Bible as if it is written by or about two different gods, the God of the Old Testament and the God of the New Testament, the God of the Old Testament is like a jealous, narcissistic ex-boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever. It's like a freaking psychopath. Like literally, he's like, there's no other God before me. I'm a jealous God. Don't you dare eat from that tree of knowledge. Don't you get smarter. Don't be smarter than me. Like peak narcissist. So Eve is deceived by Satan. This is a story we're told, to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge. But why didn't anybody question why we couldn't eat from the tree of knowledge? Why did God, that God, want us to remain under a controllable form? That's your first question. If we're going back to the very beginning, let's ask that question. And if Satan is who came down, or Lucifer came down and deceives Eve to eat the tree of knowledge, why are they then punished and they're cast out of the garden? Because God was a jealous God, because he was like a little bitchy bitch. Like, I told you not to eat from that tree because I don't want you to be smarter than me. No, it wasn't about boundaries. It was about control. And that's what the Bible really is about. It's about being in control of humanity so that they don't remember that they actually are a part of God. So Yaldabaoth creates Adam, but in the Bible, it talks about how Adam was just like a lifeless pile of dirt until God breathed spirit into him. Who was that God? Yaldabaoth's mother, the one who created Yaldabaoth. So that's where I come in about the angelic presence, because Sophia is actually who breathed life into Adam. And that aspect of it gives you the sense of like, maybe we are all angels because we are all descendants of this first man. So that's where I'm talking about maybe we're all fallen angels too, because we all have the divine spark of life from Sophia, who is the creator of Yaldabaoth, who is the creator of the heavens and the earth. Are you following me here? Okay, so Yaldabaoth demands blood sacrifices. He looks upon Cain's offering better than Abel's, because Abel brings vegetables in the harvest and Cain brings the lamb. So there are all these things in the Old Testament that tell you that Yaldabaoth is kind of like, just not like, he's an evil god, a god of darkness, and he will mislead people to think a certain way. So that's why I think the Old Testament was written, was to try to convince everybody that Eve was a bad person, that this is all women's fault, because obviously Yaldabaoth has huge mommy issues because he's upset that he was even created in the first place. So then he tries to create something, but he can't do it alone because he still has to have his mother, but then he still wants to punish the thing that he made because he's just pure darkness and he just doesn't get it. So Sophia tries to send all of these symbols, and like, Sophia is the one sending all of these things to Earth for people to remember that they are divine. Eve eats the apple, they get wisdom. He kicks them out of the garden. Once the fallen angels come, and the angels teach the people of the earth all of these different things, in the Old Testament and in the book of Enoch, it talks about how all of these things were like bad or whatever, but like, one of the angels taught astronomy, one of the angels taught astrology. I'll like put all of them here of what all of the different angels did. So it sounds like the angels who rebelled against God, who rebelled against Yaldabaoth, were wanting humanity to be better equipped, to have more wisdom. And because they were doing that and the people of the earth were getting too smart, that's when Yaldabaoth decided to wipe out the entire world. It wasn't because of the Nephilim, it wasn't because of something else, it was because people were getting too smart. They were gaining too much wisdom, and Yaldabaoth did not want that to happen. So, let's talk about the notes that I wrote down after I did all of that explaining. So, I talked about the fallen angels and how they actually taught humanity how to rebel against God, how to, the secrets of the heavens and the earth, and so that they can be better prepared. I said the wise men were astrologers. That was another part that I wrote down. But I mean, this is just like a tiny part of some of the ancient books that are no longer available. This one is available for reasons I don't know why. I don't know how much longer it actually will be available, but I would like to find the second one, and I would like to find a couple other books that I've stumbled across because of this book. Now, if you don't believe this, that is fine. These are just theories. But I think it makes a lot of sense for the histories written by the victors type of speech if the God that all of the organized religions are feigning to, and that God is a God of sacrifice and torture and torment, that God is actually a demon, maybe it's some darkness, I don't know. But if it triggers you to think that all this time you may have actually been devoting your life and practice to something that's not all loving, maybe look into that. And I'll leave it on this note. Jesus contradicted God, Yaldabaoth God, not Sophia God. Jesus doesn't contradict the goddess, and there's a lot that you can go down to learn about that. Now, I'm not saying, like, I'm not going to Doreen Virtue you here. I'm not going to say that, like, Jesus is the way, because Jesus is not the way. Sophia is the way, the goddess is the way, the source is the way, not the things that they created, because they are just trying to get you back to the thing, which is that you are divine, you are God, you have that spark in you, and you wouldn't have that spark in you if it wasn't for the source, because Yaldabaoth could not create us on his own. I don't know, I'm just saying, maybe the story we were told when we were younger isn't actually the full story, but feel free to look into it on your own.